Imagine 278 women, daughters, sisters, mothers, their names written once on church rosters and camp attendance sheets, yet never spoken again. They entered the wilderness of upstate New York between 1891 and 1899, lured by promises of holiness, healing, and salvation. They never returned, no graves, no letters, no reports to police, only silence, carefully maintained by the men who preached that disappearance was not death, but ascension. The camps were run by a doctrine whispered across revival tents and hidden pamphlets. A doctrine of erasure, that the purest offering a woman could make was to vanish. It is here our descent begins. The earliest records come from Allegheny County, New York, 1891. Circulars advertised sanctuary retreats for young women seeking to escape the temptations of city life. Parents entrusted their daughters to church wagons that traveled town to town. The camps themselves were fenced, heavily patrolled with tall crosses marking their gates. Outsiders were forbidden to enter. At first, letters came home. Mother, the sermons are long but the food is good. Father, they say I am chosen. Then, abrupt silence. When families asked questions, ministers assured them, your daughters have been taken by the Spirit. They have transcended this life of sin. Some parents wept in pews. Others dared not question. To question was to betray God. The doctrine itself is fragmentary, pieced together from recovered hymnals and suppressed court documents. It spoke of a final bridehood, a sacred role only women could fulfill. A woman who entered the camp must give up her voice, her body, her name. To resist was to sin, to obey was to vanish into the eternal record. What the church refused to clarify was chilling. Did vanish mean death? Or something far worse, an obliteration of memory, body, and identity? In 1893, the Macaulay family of Rochester attempted to retrieve their 17-year-old daughter Clara from one of the camps. They arrived to find her name already stricken from camp logs. The pastor refused to acknowledge she had ever been there. He told them, Clara has entered the eternal. She no longer belongs to you. The Macaulays begged. They threatened legal action. Within weeks, the family bakery mysteriously burned. Townsfolk whispered that they had brought it on themselves for questioning God's will. From that day forward, fewer parents asked. In 1901, a county clerk uncovered 3 ledgers hidden in a false wall of an abandoned seminary near Buffalo. The ledgers listed 278 names, all marked with the same phrase, fulfilled. Each entry noted a date of arrival, the camp name, and the symbol of a black cross drawn over the margins. The clerk turned the ledgers over to his supervisor. Days later, he vanished. His office was cleared, his records erased, his name forgotten from payrolls. The ledgers were never seen again. Recovered testimonies from defectors paint disturbing images. Women dressed in white paraded before altars in the dead of night. Chanting that grew louder until it broke into shrieks. Witnesses spoke of pits dug into the earth, torches carried in circles, the air thick with incense and burning herbs. Those who disappeared were last seen being led into the pits, singing hymns as if under trance. The earth closed over them. By morning their bunks were empty and no one spoke their names again. The camps did not rely only on volunteers. Orphanages were raided under the guise of charity. Pastors claimed they were taking in lost lambs to raise in the ways of holiness. Records show dozens of girls ages 10 to 15 removed from institutions and never seen again. Whispers spread among the orphans. To be chosen was not a blessing but a curse. They carved secret warnings into bed frames and chapel pews. Most were scrubbed away by morning. Entire towns built economies around the camps. Shops sold supplies to ministers. Inns housed visiting preachers. Farmers donated food in exchange for blessings. When women vanished, townsfolk said nothing. To speak against the camps was to risk exile, or worse. Even families who lost daughters found themselves shunned. Neighbors crossed the street to avoid them. Silence was enforced not only by doctrine, but by collective survival. In 1911, a woman named Ruth Collings staggered into a sheriff's office in Chautauqua County. She was malnourished, covered in lash scars, and barely coherent. Through broken whispers, she revealed she had escaped from a camp after 6 years. Her testimony described chains, locked barns, and sermons that went on for days without food or water. She spoke of pits filled with bones. She said the doctrine required erasing the womb of Eve. Her report vanished within a week. The sheriff resigned. Ruth disappeared soon after. Families appealed to state officials, but every inquiry was quietly closed. Some claimed the camps had friends in Albany, even Washington. The churches provided votes, donations, and obedience. The disappearances were rebranded as spiritual ascensions. The federal government, locked in battles with labor unions and political scandals, looked the other way. One senator called the issue unworthy of record. Another suggested the women had simply run away. The silence of power became part of the doctrine itself. In 1922, a fire destroyed the central office of the Evangelical Resurgence Society in Syracuse. Witnesses reported men carrying heavy trunks into the basement hours before the flames erupted. Firefighters later found melted lockboxes fused to the floor. Within those archives, it is believed, were thousands of documents connecting the camps to higher church officials. All gone. The fire was ruled accidental. No one was charged. Across surviving fragments, one symbol recurs, a black cross drawn downward, its base splitting like roots. Experts suggest it represented burial, a return to soil. Others believe it marked not death, but transformation. The cross was whispered about in rural churches for decades, carved into barns and etched onto hymnals. Those who carried the mark were said to be untouchable. To question them was to risk being fulfilled yourself. Decades later, families preserved what little they could. Handwritten letters hidden in Bibles, diary entries from younger siblings, even lullabies rewritten to carry the memory of lost sisters. They created a shadow archive. One mother in 1933 wrote, "Every night I hear her singing, but the sound is from beneath the floor." Another father confessed before death, "We let them take her because we believed the lie." By 1937, whispers of investigation began to spread. Journalists caught wind of missing women. The camps responded by moving deeper into the wilderness. That year, in the forests near the Pennsylvania border, one last massive gathering was held. Hundreds of women in white, hundreds of pastors chanting. By dawn, the camp was abandoned. Tents collapsed, altars toppled, fires smoldering, every woman gone. Not a single trace remained except blood. Soaked hymnals buried in the mud. That was the last anyone heard of the doctrine. Those who had brushed against the camps spoke of haunting dreams. Choruses of women singing underground, faceless figures in white reaching from beneath the soil. Some believed the doctrine was not just spiritual, but psychological warfare, breaking women down until they believed erasure was holiness. Others feared something more literal, that the rituals opened a doorway, that the women had not merely died but crossed into a void, a place from which memory itself cannot return. In 1942, a soldier stationed in Italy discovered a crumbling American pamphlet in a bombed-out monastery. The cover read, "The Bridehood of Fulfillment." Its contents matched survivor descriptions, instructions for silence, hymns of burial, commands to strike names from earthly record. The soldier smuggled it home, but his family reported his sudden death weeks later. The pamphlet vanished from his belongings. By the 1950s, the camps had dissolved into folklore. Parents warned daughters not to wander at night, lest the men of the doctrine claim them. Children in upstate New York played games called The Vanishing Bride. In towns near the old camps, locals still refused to speak the number 278. They called it the Forbidden Count. Today, the black cross resurfaces in graffiti on forgotten church walls, even carved into pews of abandoned chapels. Some believe the doctrine survives in secret sects, that the disappearance of women in modern America still follows its pattern. Every few years, another whisper emerges, a campfire lit in the woods, hymns sung too late into the night, and a girl who never comes home. Some researchers claim an archive still exists, locked in basements of seminaries, guarded by families who swore never to release the truth. Within it, the names of all 278 women remain, along with the writings of those who erased them. But access comes at a price. To read too deeply into the doctrine is to invite its logic into your own mind. Survivors warn, once you understand the doctrine of erasure, you begin to feel its pull. 278 women entered. None returned, their lives reduced to hymns, their bodies to pits, their memory to silence. The doctrine's brilliance was not in killing, it was in convincing entire communities that forgetting was holy. That silence itself was worship, and perhaps that silence still breathes in the blank spaces of archives, in the pauses between hymns, in the way even now, a century later, we hesitate to speak their names. 278 women disappeared. And if the doctrine still survives, they will not be the last.